Hello! We are here to do a video on microbes and germs, or what most Westerners consider to be the demons inside you. I'm going to try and keep this video extremely short because it takes forever to upload and I need to do a bunch of these in the next 24 hours. So let's get started. Collectively, when we're talking about microbes, that specifically refers to bacteria, viruses, which are phages, bacteriophages, and I would also include transposons. According to Betsy Dexter Dyer, transposons and viruses are basically the same thing, or viral remnants, and according to her, she's a mainstream PhD, nothing fringe about her, very much drinking the Kool-Aid otherwise, other than her red pilling in terms of 75% of microbial theory. In other words, she understands that we're mostly microbe, quantifiably mostly microbe, and mostly virus in terms of our genome. 85% or 4/5 of our genome is virus remnant, which are they term transposable elements or transposons. Anyway, so bacteria, viruses, fungi, and then microfauna. I'm going to use that word microfauna instead of parasites. I don't like the word parasites. Parasites have a very, very important array of duties in Earth's biology, or wherever we're around. So the most important thing to understand with microbes is that you cannot survive without them. All of your bioprocesses have something to do with bacteria, yeasts, microfauna, and fungi. Yeasts or fungi. Viruses. Microfauna. What did I say? Bacteria, viruses, fungi, and microfauna. Sorry, the car is going by, kind of distract me here, but this is the best place to be uploading these to YouTube, so please bear with me. Anyways, these creatures are incredibly simple in terms of the array of biology on Earth. They are not wolves, they're not orcas, and they're not birds of prey. They don't plan ahead the way that predators very much do. Predators literally stalk and scheme and skulk about in order to plan what their relatively oblivious prey are going to do so that they can be one step ahead, because that's how depredation works. The predator does not eat if they don't plan for what their prey are going to do when they spring their trap, or they ambush them, or they come out chasing them. It's very, very, very critical that you understand the difference. With viruses, actually I'll go through them one by one. So bacteria are little automatons. They're like little robot creatures. Yes, there's consciousness to them and awareness, but it's extremely limited, and it's certainly not a choice-making situation, if that makes sense. So when you flood your blood, your marrow, your organs with sugars, starches, alcohols, drugs, synthetic chemicals, stress hormones like cortisol, smoke from the atmosphere, stratospheric aerosolic injections, aka geoengineering, aka chemtrails, they have no choice for how they respond to you. That's the part where they're not wolves and orcas and bears. They don't plan. You flood it with sugar, the yeast or the bacteria is going to have to clean that up, and whatever tissue is damaged due to the drugs that you put in your body, the bacteria, the fungi, the parasites, or I'm sorry, the microfauna, I violated my own word there, and viruses, they must respond. Okay? I can't, if you get nothing else out of that video, you simply must understand that they must respond. They have a limited array. I'm on the Harley Mecca of Wisconsin, 35 here, so they cannot do anything but either close down and try to escape, which they can do. You know, if they detect something that's disfavorable to them, they will try to move the other direction and close down any pores in their body to get away from it. But if it's food, or it's something that they have to take in or is able to penetrate their system, then that's what's going to happen. So you flood your blood with sugar, alcohol, and an overgrowth at some point, modulated by your organs and the resilience of your system and how frequently the exposure occurs. There are so many factors, but it just comes down to, are you making your system, whether you're talking about the body of a fish or the body of a monkey or the body of a human, are you making your system overwhelmed with one or two or three ingredients or certain things and evoking a reaction? If you took a bottle of flour, a mason jar of flour, sterilized it, and then introduced some water, some warmth, and some microbes, it's not about that they want to eat the yeast. It's that they want to eat the flour. It's that they have to do what they're introduced to do, which is either consume or break down, which is consumption. That's basically what these creatures do. That's why there's so many different kinds of bacteria and yeasts and things like that. They're there in nature to break things down. And if you make it so that your system is full of things that need breaking down, then nothing on earth, other than introducing artificial counterbalances like antibiotics, which are toxic to your system as well, and certain things, compounds like the things that are in ginger, for example, are a fantastic microbial balancer. We don't have to get into specifics about what it is. We just know that when you introduce a ton of fresh raw ginger juice or pulp or tissue into your diet, things are going to come flooding out. Bacteria, candida, parasites. You will pay attention to your stool, to your evacuations, and you will see, as unpleasant as that sounds, you will see just how many things were living up inside of you that you just killed off and balanced. So that's an example of how these creatures are to be viewed. So I cannot emphasize that enough. When you get a pus-filled infection, or your cut gets infected, or assuming that you addressed it adequately, you cleaned it out of any debris, you made it as simple as possible for the body to just do what it does, which is glue back together. It will seal back together. But when you get a cut, when you gorge on alcohol and carbs and starches and sugars, processed foods, when you take extremely damaging drugs, methamphetamine's a good one. I mean, we can talk about the smoke from cannabis, but a much more clear and defined one would be drugs like heroin and cocaine and methamphetamine. They very, very obviously have a significant effect on the body. When you do this, when you damage your tissue inside, through cooked foods and the carcinogens that are inherently in cooked foods, and you're eating biologically inappropriate foods, and you're feeling stress and flooding your system with cortisol, the bacteria are doing two things. The microbes are doing two things. One, they're breaking down and digesting things that you introduce that are edibles. So the starches, the sugars, the cooked toxins, the the alcohols, the yeasty, fermenty things like especially beer and wine, and especially if they're highly processed and loaded with chemicals. The more toxicity, the worse things get. So they're eating things that you eat directly, and then they're also breaking down weak tissue that is literally calling out for them, sending biosignals out. Hey, come and break me down and make way for new tissue because I am toxic, I can't do my job, I'm more of a burden to our cellular system, our beehive, that is the human body or the fish's body, and I'm more of a detriment than I am a benefit, so break me down so I can make way for others. It's a form of sacrifice, basically. They cannot control. So I'm going to give an itemized list really quick now because this video has gotten way long. Here are the things that antagonize the dynamics between you and your microbiota. That would be synthetic substances. We don't need to get into details. If it's a synthetic, err on the side of caution until proven otherwise with the field of epigenetics that it is toxic to you. So synthetic substances, we've invented 80,000 in the last 5,000 years. Wrap your mind around that. 80,000 toxins, synthetics, that your body has never in its history had to deal with, except for things like sulfur. And just think about world geology out there. You're going to have toxic vents from volcanoes, you're going to have various phenomena, but the pattern with those is that they kill everything around them. So that's just more proof that synthetics are not good for, as a almost, it could be a 100% rule, but at least 99.9999% of the time, they do not help. The body is designed to uptake food molecules and water and air, and that's it. And those food molecules in their raw form. So also excessive and chaotic EMF, so electromagnetic frequency. We apparently have a lot of radiation coming in from the sun and from outer space, and so that would be defined as background, as part of nature. We've dealt with that for a long time. But there's certain modulations, there's certain strengths of those modulations, and forms of deliverance that are excessive and just simply deleterious to the human system. So I don't know what those all are. I just know that they exist, and our little atomic oscillators in each of our cells and our atoms, life does not like chaos. It likes coherence. It grows in response to chaos, but it does not like it in terms of health. Does that make sense? So chaos would be building the immune system, and coherence would be nurturing the system. So one's antagonistic, the other is nurturing. Cooked food is technically a synthetic, so I'm not being extremist here. You had a growth product, and when you heated that to the point where it caused where it catalyzed a chemical response, a biochemical response within that piece of fish or that piece of broccoli or whatever, you literally turned that food, the molecules in that food into a synthetic. You literally bound unnaturally, meaning not through a growth process, a biological growth process. You ruin those things. So quickly, we also have plant anti-nutrients, which are oxalates, phytic acid, and prolamines. Stress, anger, fear, and literally any unpleasant feeling will cause either tissue breakdown or an unpleasant concentration of biochemistry that will lead to an overgrowth of bacteria. Excess hot or cold states, certain forms of drugs, see epigenomics, and then especially out of everything listed there, sugars, starches, and alcohols, specifically beer and wine. Positive thoughts, emotions, Positive things for your microbes are positive thoughts, raw animal foods, raw coconut, raw herbs and vegetables, sunlight to a certain point, and then the opposite, and then meditations of all kinds.